All right. Here we go. Studio Steve. NBA Finals are tied at 1 game apiece after Game 1 thriller, where Tyrese Halliburton hit yet another game-winning shot, his fourth in this playoff run alone, single-handedly putting together one of the great clutch performances in playoff history, only to be followed up by the OKC Thunder, turning into the OKC Thunder, especially on the defensive end in Game 2 with the decisive victory where they led it wire to wire, exactly what they've been doing all year as a 68-win team. We have a series, we have a finals, going back to Indiana for the next 2 games. I'm recording this on Tuesday, one day before Game 3, which I think is going to be a ruckus environment in Indiana. Shit is getting crazy. I told myself I wasn't going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to break away from the regularly scheduled optimism that I bring you in every podcast, and we will get there. I got to start off with a bit of a rant, not going to lie. This playoff series, this finals series, I think the NBA is doing a poor job of showcasing. I don't know if it's because of the markets involved, if it's because it's Indiana and OKC and no one really gives a fuck because it's not New York and it's not LA. I don't know if it's because there's not an American superstar in the series, which the NBA has been desperate for the last 2 years. It seems to be all they talk about. They're not talking about the Lakers. If they're not talking about Golden State, they're talking about who the next American superstar is going to be, even though the last 7 MVPs have been international players, and that's probably not going to change because Wemby is also not American. And I don't see Anthony Edwards, Jason Tatum, Jalen Brunson, or fucking pick someone being better than Jokic, SGA, Wemby, Giannis. Who am I? Did I say Luka? Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. Anyways, can we please get over the American fucking angle on the storylines in this finals? Please talk about the Canadian players in this finals. There's 4 of them. SGA and Andrew Nembhard have been playing against each other since they were 9 years old. Do you know how incredible that is? If this was any other American players that have been playing against each other since they were 9 years old, it would be all they fucking talked about. It would be all they talked about. And can we please stop standing up for Tyrese Halliburton so much over the last 2 games? I love Halliburton, but I fucking can't stand that the American media keeps standing up for him, being like, "Oh, he's not playing bad. He's not playing bad. He is. He's not playing great. He's not playing great. He had 5 fucking field goal attempts in Game 1. He had 7 field goal attempts through the first 3 quarters of Game 2. Always just trying to find the American angle. I said this before the series started, that they're not going to talk about the Canadian content. They're not going to talk about the Canadian storylines involved in the finals. They need a storyline. They don't have a storyline here. It's not like the old guard, being taken down by the young guys. Any of that shit. There's no like historical, classical thing happening here, other than the fact that a team won 68 games this year, had one of the most stifling defenses in the history of basketball, one of the most stifling home victory plus minuses in the history of basketball, and they've got an MVP who is showcasing every bit of his talent in the finals the way he did throughout the entire regular season and the playoffs, and they still ain't giving him his shine, and that drives me nuts. They keep talking about who the fucking face of the league is going to be. They say that SGA is too boring, or he's too clean. We don't know enough about him. Dude's got so much swag and so much drip when he shows up at the game. That's cool. That connects with the kids. He's got so much game on the court. He's a fucking MVP. That's cool. That connects with the kids and fans as well. And even Jason Tatum, they said they've been saying the same shit about Tatum for the last 2 years. Oh, he's so boring. We always see him with this kid and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, because he's a good fucking role model. He's a good parent. He's a good dad. These are people trying to break generational curses and being responsible role models in their communities to their communities. And now all of a sudden you want the edge back. You want the fucking griminess. You want the gritty. You want the whatever it might be. And then as soon as they do that, they're going to turn into thugs. They're going to turn into goons. They're going to turn into guys who need to shape up because they're role models. Can't have it both ways, NBA media. Can't have it both ways. Pick the people that are in front of you. There's some really good fucking talent. and stop comparing the NBA Finals to the Stanley Cup Finals. Stanley Cup Finals, I'm Canadian. Stanley Cup is the hardest championship to win in any fucking sport. I don't care what you say. Two totally different games, two totally different sports. Stop bringing it up in the NBA podcast. Keep talking about the goddamn finals and getting people excited about basketball instead of trying to deter the product that is good to watch. There were so much complaints throughout the season about everyone shoots threes, everyone does this and that. These two teams that are left in the finals play way differently than anybody else in the league. Nobody plays like Indiana. Nobody plays with that breakneck speed, that unpredictability. Nobody plays like OKC with the defense, with the fucking superstar. Showcase the goddamn game. All right. Enough of that. Let's get into this shit. All right. Thank you, actually, for letting me say all that. OKC, after game 2, Shea, let's talk about him. Just masterful. So poised, so balanced with his emotion. You can tell that they talked, like he talked with the coaching staff after that first game. Putting up 30 shots isn't necessarily his jam. Like, that's not when he's normally doing game after game throughout the season. He only had a handful of games. I think it was 4 or 5 games in the season where he actually put up 30 field goal attempts. So that wasn't his go-to. That wasn't what gets the rest of the guys in the game. And you could tell that they talked about that. He was so poised. He was driving and dishing, textbook, getting deep into the lane, getting guys open threes all game long, finding the shooters. He finishes the game himself with 34 points, 8 assists, 5 rebounds, shooting 52% from the field as a perimeter player, I might add. And he did all of that shit in 36 minutes of action. 34 points in 36 minutes. Tag along, 8 assists, 5 rebounds. Dude's a motherfucking man. There's a reason he's the MVP. OKC overall as a team pitched in with 22 rebounds and 48 points from their bench. Their bench contributed significantly. The opposite can be said about the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers overall starting lineup to the end of the bench didn't really play great. We'll get to more of that in the next few minutes here. OKC, as I say, with Shea being more of a distributor and more of a contributor, even though he scored 34 points in 36 minutes, gets the rest of the team involved. Scoring by committee is a big thing for OKC. It's a big thing for both these teams, to be quite honest with you. This is a swing series because of their benches. Wiggins, who was actually their 4th leading scorer, believe it or not, throughout the regular season, finished with 18 points in 20 minutes. Super efficient, 5 for 8 from 3. Caruso, the everything man who just does everything literally on the court. The guy is just indispensable. Finished the game with 20 points, 4 of 8 from 3. 2 other big pieces that came out of this game for me, of course, was Isaiah Hartenstein. Now, like OKC went back to their regular starting lineup that they did in game 1 with Case and Wallace in not going with the 2 big starters. But Hartenstein just unlocks so much of what OKC does, namely because of his ball movement and his screen setting ability. He got a lot of backdoor cuts for guys where it just seems like nothing's happening. And then all of a sudden you could just tell when the personnel is on the court, they see Hartenstein in that high post. He plays that high post, both those elbows, extremely fucking well. And when he's got the ball there, sort of like how Sabonis plays in Sacramento, when he's got the ball up there, he can really operate. And when he has the ball, you could just tell the connection between the players. The guards are cutting backdoor instantaneously, and he was finding them on a number of different times with some great bounce passes. His screens, again, screens to screen assists. Like he opens up their offense so much, and I think it was very evident in this game. There was one, I love the combination between him and Chet when they do the high-low big to big action. Hartenstein usually up top and Chet down low. They got one nice little alley-oop off of that. They had a couple last series as well when they use that more to their advantage. I expect more of that from OKC as they continue throughout this series. If they don't start Hartenstein, I expect that he is going to come back and play a lot of minutes throughout the game. He also opens up a lot for them defensively. OKC does this thing that I talked about in the series against Denver, where it almost seems like a fake double team. Like Jokic would grab the ball in the post and his primary defender was there, and then another guy would come running in off the perimeter and quickly show, or come from behind and quickly show, and then as soon as the defender or the offensive player turns over the shoulder, they see another person. They're like, shit, I got to pass the ball out. before they kick the ball out, the OKC defender is already rushing back to the perimeter or wherever the hell they came from to get back to their defender. They're everywhere. They were just moving everywhere. They moved with more fluidity, the way they seem to like to play, the way that they played all season long. I feel like Hartenstein unlocks a lot of that for them. So I expect to see more of that as the series goes on. The Pacers, again, Halliburton, 7 shots through 3 quarters. He shot 6 times in the fourth. And I don't want to say it's garbage minutes because what the hell are garbage minutes against the Pacers when they come back from 20 points every game? But what it did do is you get 12 points in the fourth quarter if you're Tyrese Halliburton, right? He had 5 through the first 3 quarters. 12 points in a game that seems like a blowout or a runaway doesn't seem like much, but it's not necessarily about the points or the point total that was important about him getting those. It was about finding seams and finding confidence and letting that rhythm roll into the next game. So all of a sudden, when a game seems like it's a runaway, you're just letting him score because it's like, all right, cool, you're going to score. We're going to win the game anyway. It doesn't really matter. But he's getting an opportunity to find pockets in the defense. And this is something interesting because I don't think Indiana has quite unlocked anything yet. And I say yet because I feel like there is still a wrinkle here and there's another shoe to fall. They're going to figure something out. OKC is amazing, but no team is unbeatable. And I think that they were able to find a couple of things there. I know I spotted a couple of things, and I'm sure Rick Carlisle and his staff are way more intelligent about basketball than I am. So I'm sure they will see it as well. But the confidence that he got from those baskets and the angles he was able to see and able to use, I think will be productive for him going into the next game. Siakam, no field goals, 0 field goals in the second half. A lot of that, again, attesting to OKC's defense, but I also don't think Indiana did two things that I think they didn't do, 2 things that I feel like they should have done. A, look for Siakam more in the post. Again, they had another one of those sounds within the game moments where they saw Tyrese talking to Pascal, and he's telling Pascal, like, stay in the post, stay on the seal, keep sealing him off. Pascal's like, I am. No one's passing me the fucking ball. They need to get him the ball in the post. It was really productive in the first game against OKC. It's been productive the entire playoffs for the Pacers. Not only with Siakam, but also Miles Turner was looking for matchups in the post. They have to use that more consistently. I feel like there is something that they haven't unlocked yet, and they will. Part of that could be Tyrese Halliburton getting off the fucking ball. And I talked about this with Anthony Edwards in the last series. By the way, Anthony Edwards had a game where he only had 14 field goal attempts against OKC last series, and everyone lost their fucking mind. They went crazy. He's got to do this. He's got to do that. He's got to be better. He's got to step up. Tyrese Halliburton's had 2 shit games. Ain't no one saying nothing. Ain't no one saying nothing. Again, they're protecting the American star against the Canadian star. Sorry on the rant again. But Tyrese Halliburton has to play off the ball. In the first game, he had 10 rebounds. When the ball is not going through the hoop for you, when you're not able to get the ball in your hands, and I said this in the pregame before this series started, watch how difficult OKC makes it for him to get the ball. And then when he passes it, the ball denial, like the inability for him to get the ball back in his hands, is going to be a big factor in the series. It's already proving that way through the first 2 games. Dort was more of a primary defender on Halliburton in game 2. That was something I talked about after game 1. I was like, Dort was kind of floating around. The success rate that he had against Halliburton in the season is uncanny. Again, 122 possessions. Tyrese Halliburton only had 8 points on 10 field goal attempts when Lou Dort was his primary defender. They went back to Dort being the defender on him in game 2. It obviously showed that he wasn't able to play in that matchup as well. And again, when you're not able to score, you've got to do something else. He's got to get back onto the rebounds. He's got to cut. He's got to get off the ball and move around the floor. Go watch some old Reggie Miller videos, man. Run that baseline, get some cuts down. Watch some fucking Alex Caruso videos. Caruso cuts into the lane at the most opportune and the perfect times. I feel like Halliburton can do that. I feel like the rest of Indiana can do that as well. I feel like Indiana's trying to go one-on-one. You got to be so decisive when you play the Oklahoma City Thunder just because of how gritty and feisty they are on defense. If you get into the paint and you're trying to dribble through or do something fancy, it's going to get stripped. That happened a number of times. It's going to get stolen. That happened a number of times. And then they're often running the other way. Um, you have to be decisive. It has to be one dribble move. It has to be 1-2. You've got to be cutting to the hoop and just getting the ball on the run, getting it up to the rim. Um, there's something they haven't unlocked yet. I feel like something will happen. I'm hoping that after these 2 games in Indiana, it's 2-2. We can fucking extend this series as long as possible. Both teams, I feel like, still haven't really found their groove. So it's just starting to get good, in my personal opinion. Um, so I'm pumped. I'm pumped for where this is going because it's as lopsided as some of the statistics have been. When you watch the game, I'm very much an eye test person. And stats aside, I watch the game and look at the body language of the players. I look at the momentum shifts. I look at certain plays that really seem significant in short spurts, whether it's a run, whether it's a block that, like in hockey, if a big a save leads to a big goal, a big block leads to a big run, like those little things. And they seem to have happened for both teams in both games in different areas and different times. And I feel like it's just starting to warm up. The game 2. I thought one of the important things in the first quarter was Chet Holmgren being assertive on the very first time he touched the basketball. He went straight to the basket, missed the shot, was well contested, but chased after it, got his own offensive rebound, got the bucket, started the game really strong, great energy, 9 points with 2 3-pointers in the first 9 minutes of the game, was immediately reasserting himself into the game. Chet has done this, I feel like, throughout the playoffs. He's just a fucking gamer, and he's got a certain edge to him, and he has a certain expectation for himself that I feel like when he plays poorly, he comes back really strong. He proved it again this game, a really big bounce back game, 15 points, 6 rebounds, 54% from the field. Assertive on both ends. He stood up Tyrese Halliburton really good on a one-on-one possession late in the game, which I thought was a real big confidence boost. I feel like for him, there's been some moments where he's had trouble with Miles Turner on the perimeter. So we'll see where that goes as the series progresses. Nembhard was aggressive early on in the first quarter in this game, looking for a shot. I think that's really important for Indiana. I feel like Indiana can play their game as long as they're playing within their parameters. And I think like Nembhard was doing everything that normally he does in the course of a game. So it's going to be interesting to see if his confidence starts to continue to unlock. It hasn't translated into points as much as it had previously in the playoffs. But as I say, man, I think things are just getting warmed up. In sort of connection with that, Matherin's energy and his athleticism really off the bench, I feel like is going to pay some dividends as this series continues to go on. He plays with a lot of energy. He plays with a lot of grit. And I think going back home, especially being one of the big bench role players, that's a pivotal person on their team. I think like that is an interesting area to watch is Matherin, his energy, his defense, and just his athleticism and how that causes some offensive mismatches for him. I say all that to say that, again, being a person that's the eye test and I love watching the game, OKC, I feel like hasn't really gotten into a really great offensive rhythm in this series. You can credit some of that to the Pacers defense and the Pacers transition defense in particular, which is fantastic. OKC is getting forcing tons of turnovers. The Pacers are averaging 20 turnovers a game in this series. OKC is not really getting out on the other end and getting fast break points or points off of those turnovers. And as I say, a lot of that is credited to the Indiana's defense and their commitment to get back off the transition. So really interesting to see kind of, who's going to take advantage, who's going to continue playing their strengths and start taking advantage of some of these little nuances and some of these smaller situations, including shooting corner threes. The Pacers shot 49% from the corners. In the season, they're shooting 53% from the corners. In this series alone, they had 10 corner threes in game 1. They got to try to win that 3-point line. I feel like against a team like OKC, you've got to try to win a couple of the offensive statistical categories to offset their defense. Here's a note, and I feel like I've made this note several times throughout the playoffs. TJ McConnell is like a second quarter, I don't know, Does cortisol give you a boost of energy? Like something that gives you a fucking massive boost of energy. An adrenaline. How about that? An adrenaline shot right into the fucking heart, like Mia in Pulp Fiction. Like this guy just comes into the game every second quarter and just fucks shit up. And just it comes in with so much energy. He's getting into the paint. He had a 3-pointer in game 2. That brother has the deepest knee bend ever when he shoots a three. He just looks like a 60-year-old man trying to get the ball up to the hoop. It's a very long and drawn out process, but it went in. He gets assists, he gets fast breaks. He had a really great save on the baseline from a ball going out, which led to a fast break situation, which he initiated the fast break on. Just gives them a huge jolt of energy. I expect he's going to continue doing that, and probably even more so when they get back home. They're going to need him to do that. He's been that guy for them all season. He's been very consistent for them all season. I think he just needs to continue. He's a little train that could, and he's going to continue doing it. Um, an interesting point that I wrote down as well throughout this game, and this has been pretty consistent over the last few with OKC. They seem to go on runs when Shea is sitting. How important is that when your superstar is on the bench, that the team can still commit offensively and defensively and keep the lead? They went on a 9-0 run in the first 5 minutes of the second quarter, giving them a 15-point lead. Shea sitting on the bench. So when he comes in, it's easy money for him. This is part of the reason why Shea didn't play in the fourth quarter in so many games this year. He sat in tons. I wish I had the number in front of me. I had it earlier in the week. He had tons of games throughout the regular season where he did not play the fourth quarter because their team had such a large lead through three. And they've been able to kind of do that time and time again throughout the playoffs. Game 2 of the finals was another one of those situations. Kenrich Williams came in. Kenny Clutch gave him some huge defensive minutes. I thought they got some really good bench production, not only from him defensively, Wiggins, of course, with the offensive lift that he gave them, and then OKC going on a 19-2 run in 4 minutes and 50 seconds, which was like the typical OKC thing to do, to have this huge defensive melee that leads to an offensive run. They go up 21 points. And it seems like at that point, you're just like, all right, they're up. It actually was increased to 23. They go up 23, and you're like, all right, their defense is humming. They're up 23. And then all of a sudden, the Pacers go on a 10-0 run and cut it to 13. You're like, oh shit, okay, maybe the Pacers are back. And it was just one of those games. It was going back and forth. It was going back and forth. 14 assists for OKC at halftime. They only had 13 in total in game 1. I thought that was really indicative of, again, Shea playing poised, playing confident, allowing the team to get involved, not forcing the issue. And, everyone was starting to shoot. Everyone was starting to hit. Caruso obviously had a big game off the bench with 20 points, as Aaron Wiggins with the 18. So, the OKC moving the ball, playing defensively, doing everything that they did. Again, like Dennis Green, former Arizona Cardinals head coach in the NFL, said, they are who we thought they were. And that's exactly how they played in game 2. Just a couple of quick notes from the second half of the game. I thought Miles Turner came out. He had 8 points in the first 3 minutes of the third. He was playing really aggressive. I think just that leadership, that little bit of leadership and that little bit of confidence, you could see him away from the ball, dead whistles, really talking to the guys, really clapping, really trying to encourage. I think that's going to pay dividends rolling into the next few games here, especially going back home. Halliburton just got to be more aggressive shooting the ball, man. He got his second field goal at the 4-minute mark of the third quarter. He's got to get to the lane, got to be a little bit more decisive with the ball in his hand. A big wrinkle here. The Pacers were in the bonus 90 seconds into the third quarter and did not shoot a single free throw in that quarter. There have been numerous times throughout the playoff run where they get into the bonus and they just don't take advantage of it. This is a team you cannot fuck around with. When you get into the bonus, they've got to go back to the Turner and Siakam matchups in the post and just try to get to the free throw line. They're leaving a lot of empty points on the free throw line. They're only shooting 72% from the line in the series. Fourth quarter was just OKC, just back to business, man. Their bench was tremendous. They finished the game with 5 players with 15 points or more. They were up 19 to start the fourth. They were up 20 halfway through that quarter, and they were up 18 with 2 minutes left in the fourth. So just a runaway. They played exactly the way they were supposed to play. They did what they've been doing all season. Just a tremendous game from them all the way around. A couple of quick notes here going into game 3. The Pacers. Let's start with the Pacers first on what I'm looking for anyway through going into game 3, and a couple of things that I think that they could do to potentially lead to a more positive result, meaning winning the motherfucking game. So the Pacers need to play with edge and aggression. I'm talking about Matherin coming off the bench, playing with real edge, playing with physicality, playing with athleticism. I feel like they need to come back in game 3 and play with a little bit of that. Hopefully the home crowd can be as loud as OKC's home crowd. Rick Carlisle pretty much said exactly those words in his press conference following game 2. So the Pacers fan have a lot that they're going to need to bring in order to give them the energy that they need to get past OKC. I feel like they have to believe like they can beat OKC. Like they have to play like that. And they got to do it in the first half. OKC is not a team you can go down 15-20 against and then chip away and come back. Indiana did it in game 1, don't get me wrong, and they've done it against other teams, but OKC is too good of a team to allow that to happen more than once in a 7-game series. So I feel like they can't get down 15-20 and feel like they can march back. They got to play like they believe they can beat these motherfuckers, and they got to do that in the first half with edge, with aggression. They've got to use those mismatches with Siakam and Turner in the post. Those guys want the ball in the post. They're looking for it. They're calling for it. They're getting into the paint. They're purposely setting screens on players to get mismatches. They got to get those guys the ball, take advantage of the size matchup down low, and take advantage of the free throw line getting into the bonus. Pacers, again, I said this earlier, need to move off the ball. They're far too reliant on just giving Halliburton the ball at half court. He's getting pinched and pressed at half court. He actually had a backcourt violation in game 2 just because of how far Lou Dort was pushing him. Very unlikely that happens. I don't think I've seen that this entire playoffs. There's a couple of times this playoffs where I'm like, man, somebody's going to step back because the defense is pushing them so far up. And that was one of those instances. Halliburton, that was one of his 5 turnovers that he had last game. And that's something that he never does. He only averages 1.6 turnovers a game throughout the season. Pacers need to move off the ball. Halliburton needs to be less dependent as their offensive engine. I understand that's what he does, but they got to remember they're a goddamn team. They play by committee. They have a lot of scorers, and they got to do that by moving the ball. They can't just give it to one person. I think the bench will be more productive at home as they normally are throughout NBA history. And then the last thing for the Pacers, rebounds and winning the 3-point line. They were plus 17 on rebounds in game 1. They scored 10 corner threes in game 1 and shot 49% from the corner in the season. Again, shooting 53% from the corner in this series. They got to win a couple of these offensive categories again to offset the OKC defense. Maybe play some zone. I know I've been harping on the zone in many different playoff series throughout the playoffs, but OKC shooting about 33% from 3-point. They've had a couple of guys with some streaky games lately. Wiggins with 5 threes last game, Lou Dort with 5 threes in game 1, but I don't expect those guys are going to have other games in this series where they hit 5 threes. Maybe it's somebody else, and that's just the way the playoffs go. But let's see if the Pacers run some zone to try to make it a shooting matchup to see if OKC can shoot their way to a victory. OKC got to keep taking advantage of the double big lineup. I know they're going with Casey. They're probably going to go with Casey Wallace again to start this to start the game. I expect they're going to go with Casey Wallace being the starter for the rest of the series just to justify that shit. He did score the first basket of the game for OKC, so that must be like a sigh of relief for Mark Dagnall and the rest of their staff. But I think OKC running that high-low action, getting movement off the ball, getting those screens from the big guys being defensive presence in the paint. There was a play where basically Hartenstein just kind of guided, I forgot who it was, into the middle of the lane. And before you know it, Chet, with his long-ass hickory stick frame and his 10-foot reach, blocked the shot. It was his only block of the game, but it was just one of those presence possessions where you just like you're the Pacers and you're like, oh shit, that guy's there. Like I just thought I got by the big guy. They got another guy and he's well over the rim. So how high do I got to put this up for it to get in? I think also off some of their screens, they can look to get Jalen Williams, J Dub, sorry, some easy shots. J Dub's had a tough shooting series. I know he's averaging 18 points in the series, but he shot 6 for 19 in game one and 5 for 14 in game two. He's only shooting 33% in the series. So I think the double big lineup, as far as opening up their offense and giving them some defensive pressure and also some rebounding advantages, give them the ability to give guys some open shots. And Jalen Williams, J Dub being one of their primary scorers, is one of those guys. I think they got to look to get more points off of turnovers. Pacers are averaging 20 turnovers a game through the first two games. OKC scored 11 points off of 24 turnovers in game one and 14 points off of 15 turnovers in game two. Again, credit to the Pacers defense getting back. Their fast break defense is the best in the league, and they're showing it. But when you're turning the ball over that much, OKC's got to put a couple more points on the board to show for it, to open up a bigger gap, bigger lead, to just put those motherfuckers to sleep. Because as we've seen, the Pacers don't go easily. And you've got to put up a huge margin and big defensive pressure in order to put them away once and for all, which is sort of how game two went, to be quite honest. And then if you're OKC, just stay in the moment. 68 win regular season, just an amazing season all the way around, defensively, offensively, personal accolades for players, Shea getting MVP. Try not to go for the knockout punch too earlier for your OKC. I feel like that's sort of how game one went. They got to play through their defense, play with purpose and patience, and let Shea operate. Stick to the game plan. As long as I feel like they play within their competencies, they should be fine. Again, I think that as a final note, I don't think Indiana's quite figured out. There's just something there that Indiana hasn't quite unlocked, and I feel like they're getting close. I feel like both teams are getting close to unlocking something more, if that's even possible. And if you've watched the games closely, there is something that Indy has. I got the stats running on the bottom here. Indy is, out rebounding them and passing the ball more assists. Of course, a turnover matchup needs to flip around the other way if they're going to make it any more competitive than it has been. A lot of the statistical categories are fairly similar, and so we've had one team, Indiana's bench, outplayed OKC's bench in game one. The flip happens in game two. Indiana out rebounds them in game one. The flip happens in game two. Like, I feel like both teams are still kind of doing this heavyweight boxing thing where they're filling each other out, sizing each other up, and there's still something to be unlocked. And I feel like the series can go longer than most people are predicting. I feel like the more we predict this 4 or 5 game series bullshit that most NBA analysts have doing, it's just killing the fucking fun and the vibe of the NBA finals. Let's just be excited about it. Let's continue to watch these games with some vibrance. The players are amazing. The play is continuing to get better, and I think it's going to continue on into game 3 in Indiana, which is going tomorrow on Wednesday, on whatever day it is here. Today is 12th? The 11th. Oh, shit. No. Oh, today's the 11th. Yes. I'm recording this past midnight. That's why today's the 11th. OKC Thunder, Indiana Pacers tied 1-1 NBA Finals going into game 3 into Indiana today, Wednesday, June 11th. Can't wait for it. Can't wait to see what happens. Can't wait to hear how loud Indiana is going to be. Until after game 3, I'll see you then. Studio Steve, Steven Samuel saying thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate all the support. We'll talk to you soon after game 3. Peace out.